I made up the rhythm tape in a shed at the bottom of the garden. My wife then was a potter, and she had a pottery studio at the bottom of the garden. I had a little music studio next to it, and she had a big metal mixing bowl for mixing up clay. And so I went, oh, I know how to make the rhythm for this. And so, I got a microphone out and put it by the mixing bowl and threw a handful of coins in. I went, right, that's one noise. And then tore some paper up. Right, there's another one. And then searched around for the sound of a cash register or something. It's in 7/8. Okay, so I cut up 7 pieces of tape of those sound effects exactly the same length and spliced them together and, stuck it in the Revox going around a mic stand to hold it like that and press the button. And that was it.
On this 50th anniversary of The Dark Side of the Moon, we look back on an album that cannot be described as just music. It's transcendence itself. In just 10 songs, Pink Floyd takes conflict, greed, pain, and mistrust and converts it to grace, elegance, peace, and understanding. An album not so much timeless, but carrying the power of time itself. An album that speaks to us as much as we listen to it even now. Half a century later, 50 years of The Dark Side of the Moon on The Goat.
We're about at the tail end of this retrospective on 50 years of Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, released March 1st, 1973. I'm Dan Soul, host of The Goat's Morning Breath. Thank you for coming along on this retrospective into one of the most iconic albums of all time. Now, to end the record out, we have something called the Eclipse Suite. And despite each song being particularly short, some of them being full-on instrumentals, it carries some of the biggest themes of this record overall. So I just want to dig into them a little bit before we play this one out. We finally leave the Dark Side of the Moon. First things first, Any Color You Like. A track I've always loved off this record. It's an instrumental, but its emotional potency is carried just in its name. So according to Roger Waters, when he wrote this song, he was inspired by junk sellers that would come to Cambridge, where he was living, from London. They would come in, pop out a van, and then they just put their wares and junk on the table, and they do these little Cockney rhymes, if you will, to get people to come buy things. Not £5, not £3, so 50 bob to you, so 50 cents. But a lot of these junk sellers would sell china, and it wasn't authentic china, it was probably made somewhere in England or something, but they would say, you can have any color you like, love, they're all blue. So it was just part of the banter, part of the patter, but that always stuck with Roger Waters as a tantamount theme to the very record itself. Light, dark, sun, moon, good, evil, you make your choice, but it's always blue. It's always slightly ambiguous, or possibly even more than slightly. There's no words in the song, but it's conveyed through both the melody and the name. Eclipse is another very quick hitter. It's only about 1.5 minutes long, the entire song. But in that 1.5 minutes, they espouse concepts of alternity and unity, and the fact that these things are something that every human being carries with them. Both feelings of anger, lust, violence, greed, and altruism, love, unity, togetherness. We are the same at our worst and we are the same at our best. And every one of us is capable of it. Before we get into the Eclipse Suite, I want to hit that point home just a little bit with a song called Brain Damage. It is the 9th track on the album, and it's a look at mental illness resulting from elevating your profile versus elevating your own needs. Perfectly encapsulated, and if the band you're in starts playing different tunes, I'll see you on the dark side of the moon. Of course, any Pink Floyd fan could tell you that's about Syd Barrett, and the mental breakdown he had after the Piper at the Gates of Dawn album, which would be further explored throughout Pink Floyd's discography, including on the Wish You Were Here album, which was the follow-up to Dark Side. So to sum it up in a word, we can all be angry, we can all be evil, we can all do wrong under other people and to ourselves. But even though we all can we not use knowing that to recognize these in ourselves and in fact make light shine out of the dark, like the very prism itself? And with that, we get into the Eclipse Suite, celebrating 50 years of Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, one of the most monumental, emotional, living, breathing records to ever exist. Thank you for coming along with this journey with me. I'm Dan Soul, kicking back with you, listening to one of my favorite albums of all time. Let's finish it off on 106.1 The Go.